HELCOM BALEX DELTA 2015 International Pollution Combating Exercise. September 9th to the 11th, 2015, Świnoujście, Poland. Organisers, Maritime Search and Rescue Service. State Fire Service, under the umbrella of the Helsinki Commission. 21 vessels from 8 countries came to Świnoujście to participate in the HELCOM BALEX DELTA 2015, an international ecological disaster response exercise. The countries in question are parties to the Helsinki Convention, an international agreement concerning the protection of the maritime environment of the Baltic Sea area. The Command and Control Centre of the marine part of the exercise was located in the newly built SAR service base. The vessels were moored in the nearby marina, due to the courtesy of the Świnoujście municipality. The organiser and coordinator of the exercise was the Maritime Search and Rescue Service. The remaining participants from Poland were the 8th Coastal Defence Flotilla of the Polish Navy, the Maritime Regional Unit of Border Guard, the Maritime Office in Szczecin, the Maritime Office in Gdynia. The briefing of the captains of the participating vessels took place the day before the planned Maritime and Shoreline exercise. The details of the exercise were presented during the meeting. The vessels were divided into 2 operational task groups, Alpha and Bravo, and strike teams were set. The participants discussed also communication and safety procedures. After detailed analysis of the weather forecast, all the parts agreed to start the exercise sooner than planned. One of the crucial parts of the exercise was testing the communication procedures. It was performed on September the 9th using the European Tool of Information Exchange, the Safe Sea Net and the SESIS systems. On September the 10th at dawn, the response vessels departed from Świnoujście harbour and started the exercise. There are 21 vessels altogether, 3 warships from Denmark, 2 ships from Germany, 1 vessel from Estonia, Finland, Lithuania, Latvia, Sweden, and 10 vessels from Poland. According to the exercise scenario, 2 vessels collided in the vicinity of Świnoujście harbour. The accident resulted in the release of 750 tons of heavy fuel oil products to the Bay of Pomerania, additionally sourced from 2 different places. This could trigger a major ecological disaster. The SAR service assessed that the Polish response team could not deal with an oil spill of this size and requested international assistance. Despite the efforts of sea response teams, the pollution could not be stopped at sea. Part of the oil slick reached the beach on the Polish coast. The shoreline response was then coordinated by the State Fire Service. HELCOM countries have agreed that the primary response at sea should be the mechanical recovery of oil from the water surface. This has resulted in Baltic countries building up and keeping in readiness specialised response vessels dubbed the HELCOM fleet. The vessels arrive to the exercise scene and start fulfilling their tasks. The participants use oil spill response equipment, oil booms, skimmers, sweeping arms and other pollution recovery systems. There were over 50 observers from Europe and America present at the maritime part of the exercise, and even more at the shoreline, including representatives of rescue services, maritime authorities and the Helsinki Commission. International observers and journalists could watch the exercise on board the vessels, both the Maritime and the Shoreline part. The main organiser of the Shoreline part was the West Pomerania Provincial Headquarters of the State Fire Service. The aim of this part of the exercise was to test newly created response procedures and to gain experience concerning equipment unification. The cleanup and rescue action in case of oil spill requires appropriate equipment and organisation, as well as cooperation of the State Fire Service, local municipalities, and services and authorities of maritime administration. This should be done beforehand and be part of the contingency planning process. An important part of the response operations is cooperation with SAR service as the coordinator of the maritime part of the exercise and to be able to secure shoreline actions. Based on experience from other countries, the State Fire Service was established as the coordinator in the first phase of the shoreline response, with support from voluntary fire service units. In many cases, the operations can continue for weeks or even months. Therefore, local authorities should be prepared to take over the action and continue the cleanup of decontaminated grounds. Other participants included the district and municipal headquarters of the State Fire Service in the West Pomeranian province, voluntary fire service units of the same province, units of the Central Operational Reserve from Pomeranian and Varmien-Mazurian provinces, the Marshal's Office of the West Pomeranian Province, the Municipality of Świnoujście, police units, the Maritime Regional Unit of Border Guard, environmental organisations including WWF Poland, West Pomeranian Province Environmental Protection Inspector, West Pomeranian Province Sanitary Inspector, the Provincial Military Staff, the Maritime Office in Szczecin, the SAR Coastal Station in Dziwnów. On the 9th of September, the first units of the Fire State Service set up a supply base next to the beach. In the meantime, the staff developed a tactical plan of securing a 200-metre-long part of the oiled shore and detailed plans of 2 operational fields in the vicinity of Gazoport in Świnoujście. The localisation of the fields is based on continuous analysis of dispatches from the SAR, reporting the size and directions of a drifted oil slick and other sources, maritime authority, local residents and tourists. To minimise the effects of the pollution, the shoreline was secured with sorption barriers made of straw bales and foil. Oil spill response equipment was prepared for use. Firemen wore protective clothing. After 3 hours of the exercise, the participants fulfilled nearly all the operational tasks. All equipment was deployed and configured correctly. The recovery devices worked properly. All the response teams worked at full capacity. During the exercise, 2 vessels simulated the centres of 2 separate oil slicks made up of expanded perlite, non-toxic and environmentally friendly volcanic amorphous glass. the following objectives were met. The capacity for mobilisation of the teams and equipment were tested. The organisation and logistics went smoothly. The polluted area was secured. Equipment of various kinds were tested. The actions of international task groups were properly coordinated. In the early afternoon, the weather worsened as expected. The Chief Coordinator decided to finish the exercise. The response units started dismantling the equipment and returning to base. Approximately at the same time on the beach, a lot of modern equipment was delivered and deployed for operation. In the case of heavy oils, the manual recovery was considered the most efficient and environmentally friendly method. Once all equipment was set up and standing by, and firemen achieved full operational readiness, the beach commander could finish the exercise. The main objectives of the shoreline part of the exercise were to test the State Fire Service contingency plan for chemical and ecological threats on the shoreline, to test the mobilisation time of the State Fire Service in case of large-scale shoreline pollution incidents, to test the State Fire Service's equipment capabilities in case of large-scale shoreline pollution incidents, to test the organisational formalities involved with starting a large-scale shoreline clean-up operation, to test logistics involved with starting a large-scale shoreline clean-up operation. During debriefing after the shoreline phase, both organisers and participants concluded that the equipment is not perfectly fitted to work in the emergency response. Therefore, new equipment should be purchased. Return to harbour and berthing are also important parts from the navigational point of view. These safety issues were realised by the SAR service. The safety rules were observed and all units safely returned to base. Then there came the time to offer thanks and gifts. When the ships were firmly secured and cleaned up, the crews could rest for a while. The same day, the organisers and participants assessed their effort during the exercise. At the very end, the chairman of the HELCOM response work group announced the end of the official part. But it wasn't the end of the day. In the evening, there was the party. On the 11th of September, the vessels opened for visitors. Crew from Denmark, for the first time in history, won the traditional rowing competition. Congratulations.
Nice, thank you.
We thank all the participants. Looking forward to seeing you next year in Lithuania.